Fantastic. I just realized that I was the only thing between this group of people and lunch, so we need to get moving. Cool thing is, too, Starla's not in the room, so the clock hasn't started, so we got extra time. Welcome, everybody, to the EMS Committee. Oh, here she comes running. Somebody trip her. We'll go ahead and get started. I think we have everybody here but Jorge, and for the committee's benefit, as well as everybody else in the audience, I'd like to extend a special welcome to him, a thank you to him. He emailed me this morning. He's had some other time commitments come up in his work life and his personal life. It's going to prevent him from having adequate time to dedicate to this. And so he tendered his letter of resignation from the EMS committee this morning to me, and I thanked him via email for that, but I want to publicly thank him for his service to the committee. He's been with us for a little over a year, and has always participated and come to the meetings, has helped us very well get down into the valley when we were doing the stakeholder meetings, found us a beautiful place down there to meet, and so he's going to be missed, but I appreciate him going ahead and stepping aside once he's realized that he doesn't have the time commitment. That ties into an announcement at the end that I'll make at the beginning, which is the applications for EMS committee members will open up September, I believe, around September 2.
Yes.
And so right now, I believe, Walter, the list is showing that you're the only one that expires at the end of 14. And like everybody but 2 expire at the end of 15. So I was talking to Starla. We're going to go back and review the records because that doesn't seem right. It seems like the committee should be in thirds. So we're going to go back and review that to make sure, because we filled some people into different seats over the last couple of years for people who had to step down. And so we'll make sure that rotation is up. But just so you know, you at least are on the 14, so you'll need to reapply.
Sure.
So when that application comes out. And then the rest of us just need to watch the list, and I'll let you know once Starla gets it figured out, the right dates, if anybody else falls into the 14 timeline. Alrighty, we can start down the list. Some of this will go quick. We may even get out for lunch early. Yeah, no. Nobody in the audience laughed. Everybody up here did. So the first thing on our agenda is review proposed revisions to Title 25, the new rule changes, and I'll let Joe talk about that. That is the ones as a result of House Bill 3556 and Senate Bill 8. Just maybe the status, and I may have a question, or the rest of the committee may.
A question or two?
Yeah.
So I would first make a recommendation that Eddie and Justin's tenure on this committee should be at least challenged to see if they have to reapply or not. I mean, I don't know. It's something the committee chair may want to consider.
That may not be a bad idea, really.
Yeah. So as you know, the new rules are in place as of, I'm pretty sure the date was August 10th, to reflect the changes to the additional requirements as of Senate Bill 8 and House Bill 3556. So they are up and in place. The new application is online for new providers with all the additional requirements. It's a checkbox as you go through. You got to answer those different questions. Remember, Chair, I don't know if you really want me to go over all the details here of Senate Bill 8. I think everybody probably pretty much knows it, but it's all there and up and running. It's a done deal.
And with the moratorium drawing to a close here in a week and a half, I'm personally curious. I don't know about the rest of the committee, but if there is
like an influx of applications. It's funny.
Have people started kicking the door down, or?
So I gave testimony last week at a Senate committee, and the first question was, how many applications have we received since the new application went up as of August 1st? And as of last Wednesday, close of business, we have issued 12 licenses throughout the moratorium. They were for companies and organizations that met the exception requirements, and we have received 0 new applications as of Wednesday of last week. Now, I don't know anything came in Thursday or Friday, but so far we have not been inundated with new applications. And as I said to the Senate committee, and I really will say to this committee, and I believe to be the truth, is that the standards are much stronger I think if we do get applications, there'll be stronger applications with a vested interest in providing the correct level and type of EMS that we want in Texas.
Committee have anything for Mr. Schmid? The only other thing I would add is the state moratorium draws to a close at the end of August. CMS announced 2 or 3 weeks ago they're going to do another 6-month extension in Harris County and the 11 or 12 counties around Harris. Pardon me, in the 11 or 12 counties around Harris County on Medicare licenses. So,
is this the second extension?
Third.
The third.
Second extension. Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Third 6-month moratorium. They announced it back around the 1st of August that they were going to extend it another 6 months.
So that'll go to March of next 2015,
yes.
I believe.
So, and that raises concerns now that the state moratorium is over, that if there are folks that were waiting for the state moratorium to get over in that part of the world to try to do something inappropriate, they're going to have to find another neighborhood to do that in if they're going to try to defraud the federal government. So, because they're not going to be able to in the Houston area for at least another 6 months. So,
and there was several questions we received in the office about is there a state moratorium going to continue? I guess that was prompted because of the Medicare, and understand that can't happen without the legislators coming back, and I guess right now it'd probably be a special session of extending that. But there's no way legally for that to happen.
Yeah. So for those that are familiar with the rules, there's requirements of city and counties in there. If people want to open up in your city or county as a new provider, they need a letter. And if you haven't met with your local officials about that letter, I would encourage you to do that so that the letters are done appropriately as they were designed to be done. So,
and Dudley, we have met with the leagues of city and the county associations and provided to them a document that NHTSA put out on how to assess your EMS needs. So, and we've offered assistance to both organizations if municipalities needed anything. And we haven't, I don't read this as a negative, we haven't received anything back. The communication's been there, the relationships have been forged, that document was given, and so we'll wait and see what happens.
Could you put a link to that on the EMS Committee GETAC page?
Sure,
so
we
that
can.
The EMS providers would have access to that if their city manager or county judge comes asking them.
Yep.
Because a lot of times they come local before they turn to their association. So, all right. Anything else on agenda item number 1? Anything from the audience on those rules? They are in effect officially now. All right. Number 2 on our agenda. Deals with the work that we did getting stakeholder input and developing a document for GETAC that went to DSHS that DSHS then included in its entirety to their report to the legislature. And I was just curious, I know a few of the items in that report that DSHS made to the legislature are recommendations of the Sunset Committee for DSHS moving forward, but I didn't know if you guys had anything else working, or had there been any more inquiries or anything else come up as a result of that stakeholder report that we put together?
We haven't had any, other than there has been some dialogue within the office on how do we move this forward now and some of the steps that we would take, but there hasn't been anything official from the Sunset Committee or from the Senate Committee.
Okay. Anything on number 2 on our stakeholder report? All right, then that brings us to number 3, an update from EMS for Children. Mr. Vance?
How was I?
I saw that. I was looking for you out there.
Good morning. The first thing I have for you is that we have received the national data just a couple weeks ago on the national EMS reassessment that we conducted that finished up earlier in the year. We're going to put together a presentation that we would like to present to you in February. And then the second item I have for you is, as you've heard me talk about in a couple of the previous meetings, the EMS recognition program that we've been working on. We do have a draft proposal ready now that we would like to present to you for your input and comments. I'm not sure of the formal way how to do that, if I just email that to Dudley or how you'd like to go about doing that.
That'll work. I can get it to Jane. We can get it distributed to the committee and even put it up on our, is it open for input from everybody?
Yeah, it's open
Okay.
for public
Then we'll put it
comment.
up-
Whoever would like to comment on it,
We'll put that up on
we'd
the
like to hear
webpage
them.
as well, and we'll send folks to it as best we can to, and then some of us just have distribution lists that go, seems to the world. So we'll get as much input on it as we can for you.
Sure, I appreciate that. Any questions?
Anything for Sam?
All right, thank you.
I guess so. All right. Joe, we're coming back to you for update on status of revisions to the EMS and trauma system rules. We used to go to Jane for that, by the way. Now we're coming to you.
You know how that flows.
Delegation's a wonderful thing.
So, yeah, we've made, it's still all internal. We've made a lot of progress on both sets of rules. We are planning on having a community meeting sometime, probably in August, where we would at least come out with the concepts of what we're developing here, with great input from everyone, just to say, you're really out there in left field, and then start fine-tuning it after that in here. But so we're making great progress. You'll hear more as soon as we start finalizing our plan. I mean October. I'm still in July. Your weather here is messing me up.
Yeah, you thought it was nice last year. Now you're here when it's hot. Yeah.
It hasn't been as hot as I thought it could be.
All right. Anything for Joe or Jane on that? All right.
And Dudley, I just emailed you the website for that community assessment.
Okay.
So I sent you personally.
Okay.
We'll put it up also, but you now have it too.
All righty. Number 5, I believe, Justin, this is your work group. It was on the air medical agenda, reviewing language when both air medical and ground providers are on scene. I know we gave a report last time. Do you have anything else on that?
No, not really. We spoke with Joe about the intent on this language still being on our agendas, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. We discussed. You published a document that us and the Air Medical Committee reviewed, and then as these rule revisions go out, we're going to look at it again to make sure that relationship is intended to move forward and seamlessly for the patient. So I think that's the reason why we still have this here. Dudley is we know what they are with the rule revisions coming out. As we move forward, we want to be open-mindful of how we move forward. Is that correct, Joe?
Sure. And I cannot say it enough that we're going to use the same approach that we did with Senate Bill 8, and maybe this committee will be, we'll be spending some time together again throughout Texas. So, the first draft we're developing internal. I am really a firm believer that if we put out a blank piece of paper, we'll still be here in a couple years trying to do this. So I have taken all the input from all the different committees and put some and some not into the draft rules that we're working on internally. And then we'll give you a high-level overview, and then we'll start fine-tuning it. So I don't want anybody to think we're ramming this down anybody's throat. We really want input and consensus so that as we move this forward, we're not going to be labored with a whole bunch of negativeness. And I've done this in the past, and I just want to say that I hope everyone comes to the table with the belief that everyone should not anticipate getting what they want, including the state. If we're all annoyed a little bit, we've probably done a good job. And I think that it's cooperation, working together to enhance a good system. And so there's a lot in there, and so we'll present the documents, we'll start having some dialogue and keep fine-tuning them so that when we introduce the packet next year, we can hopefully take the same approach as we did with Senate Bill 8. We had 1 or 2 comments on it, and that was about it. And it really got real easy then because we did all the work up front.
Anything else, Justin?
No, sir.
Anything else from anybody on the committee or in the audience about that agenda topic? Okay. All righty. We're going to postpone the update from EMTF. That person's still on their way here, so we'll move to that when they get here before we're done with the meeting. I was curious, and this is for open public as well as the committee, but we keep this on our agenda just because it continues to be an issue for us. But any issues on drug shortages, pharmaceutical compounding, et cetera, as we continue to work through the issues of shortages of medications and IV fluid. Anybody have anything to offer? Best practices, new problems cropping up that we don't know about, issues that are out there, et cetera? Come on now. Nothing on that, really? That's always such a hot topic.
The latest is what, ringers?
Yeah, I don't know.
What seems to be the ongoing problem for now.
Is the saline issue over, or did we just have a little reprieve?
I think what happened with the saline problem is that the FDA opened up international markets to allow them to provide additional saline into the system. I know I had this conversation with Dr. Kidd yesterday, and she said there was still a little bit of an issue over in San Antonio for a permanent solution. Hopefully we're getting there. But you know, someone just contacted me officially asking if this was a problem, and I said, I'm not hearing anything, so I just want to make sure I'm saying what is happening in the industry in Texas, that I'm not hearing any big issues. And hopefully the silence here is echoing what I've been saying too.
I think too, maybe there was some change in practice. I know in Dallas, we finally started carrying saline locks so that we didn't have to hang a bag on every single IV that we started. Sure. So I think probably maybe more groups went to that too, that kind of helped with that shortage.
Yeah, I think the science is collecting up that we probably don't need to push a lot of fluid into people as much as we thought we did.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, man. No, please.
Matthew Baker with RACV. We are experiencing challenges in the valley. We had to do some scrambling, I guess probably within the last month and a half, to facilitate one of the local 911 providers with some supply because their supplier couldn't supply them, their backup source couldn't supply them. So we were able to facilitate getting them some product from one of the local hospitals. But it is, to my knowledge, an issue for us in particular. I can't speak for the rest of it.
What are they missing? What are they having a hard time getting?
Saline.
Saline?
Yeah, there was the saline. That was the issue, and they've gone to a system of, I guess, having to have locked and do a lot of different things trying to make that supply last. But we were able to bridge the gap, and hopefully going forward they would, establish a system in place with the facility that was able to supply them the resource. But it is a challenge.
Do you know what size bags they were after?
I want to say ultimately they were after 500. I think 500 ml.
Okay.
But we were able to get them, I think, 100 milliliter bags, like 20 cases, 25 cases or something, because they rifle through quite a bit on a daily basis. So
I've been able to work with one vendor, and I can get with you afterwards.
Okay.
We just have a standing order. We can't go in and place an order for 15 or 20 cases, but we can order 2 every week, and they've been showing up 2 every week.
Okay.
So if you need that, I can tell you who I'm working with there, so I don't want to plug anybody specifically. But we've been able to order it in smaller quantities on a regular basis.
Okay.
And they're supplying it. That's 500s.
Yeah, and to my knowledge, I think some of the local healthcare systems down there are on they're on a restriction, so they can't really necessarily give. But it was an independent facility that was able to kind of supply that resource. So.
Anybody else? The more jaded side of me said that the saline shortage seems to be over now that the price has increased over 300%, but that's probably has nothing to do with it.
Can I ask for donations now or later?
Pay into the saline fund?
No, I'm talking about for this weekend.
Oh, for this weekend. Yeah, really. I forgot about that.
Anybody
Okay.
who has any saline with them, if you could drop it off with Dudley. He's riding in the hotter than hell this weekend. He's worried about the saline shortage.
My track record is I need 2 bags before I'm done, so I'm just saying. Let's see. Nothing else there. Brian, nice of you to speak up and segue into the Trauma Systems Committee Registry Work Group update.
Well, I'm hoping
Get
that
a mic. Get up.
I'm hoping that Jane is going to enlighten us. I know she is.
Brian
What's your role
punted to
there?
me before the committee started.
Oh.
The registry work group will meet at 11:30 today, Dudley. We're going to be reviewing rack level data data report that the registry was able to put together for us on hospitals and EMS, and it will be at the rack view level. Our office is going to be contacting those providers that are not reporting to the registry now, and try to work through with each individual provider why they're not reporting, and make sure that they are aware of the 2016 date for the affidavit will no longer be accepted. And if that's not an issue for them, then it will. They also need to know that reporting to the registry will be an issue at their next licensure. So, questions?
Get up on the mic, Justin. Sorry.
If we're asked at a regional level, is there a timeline that those attempts for communication are going to be made as far as?
Well, we'll probably start that in September.
Okay.
And the first wave will be letters, Justin. And then we'll follow up with individual providers for those that don't respond. Okay.
Thank you.
It's okay,
And,
Brian?
Anything else?
No, I have nothing.
Just to reiterate what Jane was saying, I think everybody probably got your letter. It was a letter, right? We got, or an email with a letter attached or something? Okay. That they're going to take affidavits for your runs to the trauma registry, or to the EMS registry, pardon me, through the end of 2015, and then there's no more affidavits. They're confident the new registry is up. They're confident with the product that it's delivering. And so that means at the end of 2015, going into 2016, by rule, all of us have to submit every run we run to the trauma or the EMS registry. I keep calling it the trauma registry. Jory's rubbed off on me, but you have to submit every run. And starting in 2016, over a year and a half away, they're going to start taking disciplinary action on that rule. They've not before because the registry has not been viable and has not been reliable. But the new one that we're in appears to be that way. It seems to be moving forward strongly. And so if you know of folks, because I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room, but if you know of folks that are not submitting runs to the registry, they need to get their processes in place in the next 18 months to make that happen. So that's a long-standing rule that has not been enforced that is going to begin to be enforced. So I think for those of us who have watched this for a while, we've always been a little leery, but with what we're seeing come out of the registry, I think it's time that we start doing that. We start collecting the data so that we can really know what we're doing in EMS in Texas. So, any other comments, concerns, questions?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Jane, is it possible that when you start receiving feedback from those agencies that aren't reporting, to catalog that somehow so that maybe we can talk about that here, about what the struggles are, maybe we can come up with ways to help them with those struggles? I think we have some ideas. I think you and I have some ideas of what those struggles are, but I really would be curious to find out truly what the struggles are.
Sure. I don't see any reason that we couldn't do that, Brian. And whatever feedback we get from those firms that are not reporting, work through that at the state level, and then report back to you guys what we're hearing from the community.
Yeah, maybe include that in the letter, though. Ask for why you're not. You know what I'm saying? That's part of it. So they will reply versus, are you reporting or you're not reporting? You know, just a warning, but ask them why. Maybe we can get some more information that we can work with.
And from what I understand, the plan is that this is not just a letter that's going out. This is that you're reaching out to them to say, what can we do to help you? That's the plan with this.
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that's clear. This is not heavy-handed. This is about what can we do to help you, and that's why I think that if we can all have an idea of what the struggles are, maybe we can come up with something in here that we can help with that.
Anything else on the EMS registry? All right, you got that word group at 11:30? All right, cool.
Can I ask one question about
Yes.
that? We continue to talk about, and maybe Brian, this is a question you can ask them. You know, we hear things about stroke registry and trauma registry and all that, and I've visited on a couple different instances. But is there any plans to combine all that to one reporting agency, or do we see that in the future? Or, and I know that's a way big topic to throw at you right now, but.
So the struggle is, it's not simple. What funds the registry, trauma registry, what funds the stroke registry, when you can't commingle the money. One cannot use the other's data right now. And I think that from a legislative standpoint, we need to find some help to be able to find a way to get access to have one registry instead of having a separate registry for every type of, whatever the problem is, stroke, trauma, STEMI. Is that pretty close, do you think, or am I off base? I'm looking at Jane or Joe.
No, you're pretty good, Brian. The part of the, for trauma, we have in legislation the authority to have the trauma registry and collect data. Now, on the stroke side, we've not had that authority in legislation, okay, to collect and house data on stroke. So there's been lots of different gyrations on how particularly CVD Council and some other areas could get that information. And I've not been really part of that conversation, but the statute hasn't changed for the state agencies. So how hospitals do it, if you're going to be a stroke facility, the requirement to be a designated stroke facility is that you collect data, you use data, and that you report data to the state as requested. The state hasn't requested it because we didn't have the authority to have it, okay? So, but to be a certified stroke facility by DNV or Joint Commission, you're going to be using data. So they're using an external registry and reporting to an external organization that's not connected with a state agency. So those two things do not merge, okay? Does that make sense at all? Okay. It's not easy. Brian is absolutely correct. It's not an easy thing.
I think the struggle that Justin's talking about, and the problem that we're seeing is that we're getting hit from five different places asking for data to submit data when it's all in one place already. It's already in the trauma registry, the EMS registry, the registry, whatever we're going to call it. It's in the registry now. But then we're also being asked to send the same data that's in there to the stroke and the same data that's in there to the STEMI. And it'd be nice for us not to have to do that. It would just be nice for them just to go get that data out of the registry and be done with it. I think that's what Justin's trying to say. So it's just going to require some legislative changes and some.
And Jane, we understand that, but we know that EMS reports 100%.
Right.
So we already know that speaking specifically EMS, that, like Brian said and we've communicated, we know that data is there. Sure, I live in a simple world all the time, but is that considerations being explored, that instead of us reporting it, the state being able to share our data that we submitted, be it across, to help facilitate y'all's conversation about stroke registry or stroke designation, or on the national level to share that with the agencies that are collecting national studies, because they're relying upon us to submit that information, and we did.
And Justin, some of those questions I can't answer right here, but let's have that conversation at our work group, and let's see if we can work through it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hey, Jane, quick question for you. Will the RACs get any information on what agencies in their area are getting letters in terms of submission to the registry?
So they can help.
They may be able to help facilitate some of that, especially with the smaller agencies.
We're not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a
That's
suggestion may
the
help.
right, and I know that the RACs were very willing to assist with that, and at this point in time, I don't know that the RACs will be copied on it, on the letters that go to the agencies. There's some questions that I need to get answered on my side before I can tell you 100% that the RACs would or would not be notified of those agencies.
Okay.
I think what the answer to the question is that we were trying to do something that the state was supposed to do but didn't have the manpower to do. You guys have found some manpower to be able to do this now, and it's much easier for you to do it. It's more legal for you to do it. There's not proprietary information that we're trying to get around to get us the information to try to do that. So I think that what's going to happen is that you have people now in place to be able to do this, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's going to get fixed.
Right. That's, the state's going to do what the state needs to do with this. And, the RACs stepped up and said that, we will help because of some of our limitations on our side. And we think that we have corrected some of the limitations on our side, and so that the state should be able to take back what the RACs volunteered to help us with. So we think we can do this. And if we run into some an issue that we need assistance through the RAC, then we're going to come back to the RAC and say, hey, and it might be to the individual RAC, say, can you help us with this? If the providers that we contact tell us that they need education and training, it may be through the registry, or it might be to come back to the RAC to work with the folks in the RAC to get some education and training on how to use the registry product too.
Well, also proactively for RACs.
Come on up.
Come on up, Catherine.
Don't get to yell from the room. Come on.
If I have to talk in the microphone, so do you.
You want to talk about STEMI Texas while you're up here, or you just...
I was just thinking proactively, the RACs on the EMS summary report, it gives you a list of all the EMS agencies that have given data to the 2013 report. So proactively, you could reach out to those agencies that are in your RAC that are not listed on that report and say, we noticed on the 2013 we didn't see your name on there. Is there anything we can do to help? So it's not necessarily, one doesn't have to wait for the other. We can kind of proactively be looking at that. And since you mentioned it, Dudley, STEMI Texas is coming. Yes, thank you for showing that. STEMI Texas is coming to Houston October 15th, 16th, and 17th. On the 15th, we are having 2 pre-conference workshops. One of them is on Action Registry, so it's great for any of your registrars or QI people. We're also having Tim Phelan come in and teach a pre-conference on ECG recognition, and also Dr. Mark Escott is going to talk on airway management. So any EMS folks, that is just going to be a great conference. It's only $30 if you attend the 2-day conference, $50 if you don't. So registration is online, STEMI Texas 2014, and we're also going to be putting it on the state's website. If you have any questions, you can ask me, or there are brochures out front. Thank you.
Awesome.
Dudley, I have a question. Is that access to the help that we're talking about, has it changed to where if you call the folks about the trauma registry, are they able to get a hold of a live person and talk to them or get a call back? Or are those messages still kind of going off in the never land?
Well, I'm going to have Kitten Holloway answer that.
All
She's
right.
the intermanager at the registry. So, yes, we recognize that there were some issues there, that we've had a little glitch, but Kitten can address that.
Welcome to the EMS Committee.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank everybody here for the support that I've heard this morning, and also let you know that my boss, Dr. John Villanacci, of course, who will speak tomorrow at GETAC, at the GETAC meeting, he will outline more specifically, some of the improvements that we've been able to accomplish over the last quarter. But to speak to your question, if I'm understanding, you're asking specifically about customer support. And I'm going to be very upfront with you guys about customer support. We've had some glitches. Being able to get a hold of a person for everybody that calls in. We don't have the resource to have a person staffed on multiple phones. We don't have a call center. But what we have and what we put in place is a very strict protocol. In addition to the actual email address that we've asked folks to use, and the 1-800 number, the protocol is that anything that comes in those 2 ways get answered within 2 to 3 days. Now, that does not mean that you cannot call a person. We're not saying to you, don't call our people, because we want our staff to interact with you. And let me just ask, could I ask the staff that's here to stand up, please, because I want to point out who they are. Most of you probably know, but I want to point out who they are. So Tiffany and Rose, where are you guys? Tiffany and Rose are part of the customer support team. And this group over here, if you guys will stand up, these folks are a part of our EPI team.
All right.
And guys, first of all, what you should know about me is that I've been working with this registry way back when it was Track It, and yes, I'll own that. and I say working with it, I've actually been working with you as stakeholders for that period of time, because that's how long I've been with the department. And my point in sharing that with you is that we know and recognize the journey that we've been on with this system. We have a lot of confidence in the system that we have right now. It's not perfect by any means. And I think the message that I want to send in terms of customer support is, please give our protocol an opportunity to work. And if it doesn't work, then you call the staff directly and they will return your call. And if that doesn't work, take this number down, 512-776-3131. That is my direct line. And if you don't get what you need, call me. Again, my job with Dr. Villanacci is to make sure that this program continues in a seamless manner, that this great staff that we hired, that you continue to see their faces, and that you have the opportunity to access them as well as myself. And if you need to, you can access our new unit director, which John will talk about tomorrow, and you can also access John. I think as we move forward, there is one message that I would like to convey that I've talked with our staff about and I've talked with John about. This registry is, the technology, sometimes it feels like the tail's wagging the dog. And it's complex, as Brian has pointed out earlier. But what I want to encourage everybody to do, it's about this new term they call return on investment. We're all investing right now in this, in building this system and in making it actually do what we need it to do. That's going to require an investment of time, as you well know, on your part to be trained. We're working on various options for training to make sure that as you go through this, that you have what you need to enter into this registry. So that is a big part of what we're working on, and our customer support team is the entity that will be working on what those training options will look like. We will have a training plan, and we will share that with you. So, and we welcome, as always, any feedback or what works for you best in terms of training. But one thing I do need to share, this is not a hand-holding type of venture, whether it's for you or for us. It's one where everybody's going to have to set aside the time and invest in the energy to really learn how to use the system. But I'm very confident that once we all learn this system, we're going to take off and be light years ahead of where we ever thought we would be. And hopefully the word track it will never be spoken again. And the EMS trauma, and just to clarify the name, it is the EMS Trauma Registry System. That is the official name of our system. So I hope that answers your question, and I hope I haven't taken up more time than I need to.
I have one more.
Yes, sir.
So would you say the two people you have in customer support are overwhelmed?
I'm sorry?
So would you say the two people? There you go. Son. Just making sure. Would you say those two people that you have in customer support are overwhelmed with calls every day? Is there that many calls still coming in to the registry for customer assistance?
I think the last number that I saw, and Tiffany, help me if I'm off base here, I think John will report on this tomorrow. I think we had something like 243 requests since the last, what, Tiffany? Since the last GETAC. So I wouldn't say that they are overwhelmed at this point, but I would tell you that they're busy the whole time they're there. I mean, we feel we're meeting our protocol guidelines at this point. Am I correct about that, Tiffany and Rose? 3 to 5 business days for our callback. But are we meeting that? That's what I thought. We're meeting the 2 to 5 days. That sounds like a lot of time to get back to you. And here's what I know. Here's what I get. When you call us, you've had to carve out time in your day to work in that phone call. I get that. And you would like to get an immediate answer. I understand that too. But the reality of it is that sometimes the answer that we need to give you is going to need to be researched. And we don't have a call center. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we get one, but I'm simply saying we're working with the resources that we have, and right now we have a customer service team of, 5 folks altogether, and we've got 2 vacancies with that right now, one which will be filled shortly and the other which we're working on. So are we overwhelmed? I think we're managing it. Is it meeting your needs? You need to let me know that. If it's not, I need to know.
Eddie, and everybody knows me, I'm not one to I'm very blunt.
Good, because I like that, Brian.
So here's what I know.
Okay.
There was a bad dead-end line.
Yes, that's correct.
That they didn't know about, we didn't know about.
That's correct.
People were calling in, they were leaving messages on this line, and nobody knew that line was dead-end line. That
that's
it was
correct.
Not being, so that has been corrected.
That has been corrected.
So a lot of the complaints that we're getting, a lot of the phone calls that we're getting, a lot of the struggles that we've had individually trying to get in there should have been fixed recently, so that now that dead-end line is not there. Can you give us, I'm going to throw you under the bus here, and I'm sorry.
You go right ahead. I've been under that bus many times, Brian. It's okay.
Can you give us the 1-800 number again so that we can get it on the record and we can...
Yes, yes. Tiffany, you guys, you going to come up here and give me that 1-800 number, or hand me my phone and I can give it to them? It's okay, Brian. You see this? It's real thick. Well, I got the scars to prove it, Brian. And by the way, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we, with our new unit director, we're in the process of screening for our trauma manager, but I want to invite everybody here. That posting is still open. It's a great position because we work with some great stakeholders, so I want to invite everybody here that if you're interested to apply, because we are screening for those positions. Go ahead, Tiffany.
It's 1-800-242-3562. 1-800-242-3562.
I wonder if after this meeting and we all go back to our office Monday or Tuesday, if I called you and got the protocol that you're talking about with the website and this 800 number and put it out to the folks in my area, because anytime I bring up trauma registry at our local RAC meeting, at any of our stakeholder meetings that we have, there is that bad taste because
they
of the
go,
deadlines and
I got
everything.
you.
And maybe we could help at our level to facilitate some of that to where this is what you should be doing and go that direction. Would that be okay?
I think that would be fantastic. Tiffany, isn't that on our website right now? What can you give them the website address, please? Well, whatever
The email address for customer service is injury.web@dshs.state.tx.us, and that's being monitored throughout the day by Rose and myself.
So can we set up if there's no understanding that we have to carve out time? If I sent you an email and said, hey, can we get together on the phone at a certain time? Would that be a possibility?
Yes, the process is once we receive an email, we enter it into a tracking system that Rose and myself are working on, and we do the 3 to 5 business day turnaround for an initial contact with the stakeholder. Doesn't mean we necessarily resolve the issue right then and there. It's just initial contact. What was your question? I'm sorry, what was the next part of your question?
Justin, I'm sorry.
Repeat that address one more time.
It's injury.web@dshs.state.tx.us.
Just go to our website, it's there.
All of this
If you
information.
get to our website, it's there.
Yes,
And
all
it-
of this
and it all
information is
works.
on the website as well.
I think part of the problem that we're hearing is somebody will call up, leave a message. When they get a call back, they're driving or
Exactly.
whatever else. So,
Right.
yeah, preferably by email, and then we can maybe set up a conference call between a few of our folks and 1 or 2 of you folks and work through the problems in a scheduled fashion where everybody has the resources available to do that. That's possible?
Yes, either method is fine because once we get a voicemail, an initial phone call, or an email, it all goes through the same process of getting put into our tracker.
So when
But,
we call
but,
this, when we
but
call
I get
this-
you. What Tiffany is, she's giving you some detail on the protocol, but here's the bottom line. You send an email, you say, can we schedule time to talk with you at such and such about this issue? And the answer to your question is yes. If you send that email, just keep in mind that it's going to, that right now it's 2 to 5 days to actually respond to that. But you set something up and say, 5 days later, can we schedule something at this time on this date? The answer is yes. You can do that and they will respond.
Okay, so just to be clear, when you call the 1-800 number, you are not going to speak to a live person. You're going to have to leave.
That is correct.
You cannot get instant help. That's just not the way this program is going to work right now.
That is
Okay,
correct.
That's okay, as long as we know that up front.
That's correct. You're absolutely right, Brian.
Up until like right this minute, I think our impression was that keep calling the 1-800 number back and maybe you'll get somebody.
No.
So that's good. That's really good information.
And Brian, I want to thank you too for bringing up the issues that we've had, because this protocol is a result of our discovery, and I make no apologies for what happened other than to apologize to this group for us not being able to figure out what was going on until a certain point in time. But as a result of all of that, and again, John will speak to this in more detail tomorrow, but we fixed those issues, but our way of fixing them at this point is exactly what you're saying. We put this protocol in place. We've given these 2 options for people to get a hold of folks. No, you won't get a person on the phone when you call the 800 number. You'll have to leave a message. But my message to this group is, if you've got something urgent and you can't get what you need when you need it, then pick up the phone and call the staff directly or call me. And I'll give you another little secret here, guys. The agency number is 512-458-7111. Now, that's during business hours, but all you got to do is say, could you please connect me with Tiffany Muniz? Could you please connect me okay? Now, I'm not throwing the staff under the bus. I'm giving you another way to get through to this staff because they want to help you. Will we get overwhelmed if you indiscriminately use that method? Probably. But I'm giving that to you as an option because I know that there are times when you got to have an answer when you got to have an answer.
One last question for you.
Sure.
Can you kind of give us an idea on Nemesis 3? We were told the other
On
day,
what now?
Nemesis 3. We were told the other day that we should see that sometime in the fall. But a lot of us have a lot of decisions to make. A lot of EMS agencies have a lot of decisions to make between now and when you'll start accepting the Nemesis 3 because of our software vendors. So.
I know about that issue on a peripheral level, Brian, so I can't answer that for you. Our project manager, Rob Klein, is a better person to answer that question for you. Here's what I can tell you. We've been getting money for the new registry since 2010. We're looking at building out at least through 16, 17. My hope is that at that point we can stop building and assess where we are, whether it's Nemesis 3 that we need to have in place or whatever else. But at that point, we want to start looking at what do we have. Number one, are we using this EMS trauma registry in a way that gives you as users and stakeholders what you need to get better patient outcomes? Number two, are we able to use this registry in a way that we can do injury surveillance and be able to contribute to the public health need, aka prevention intervention? And number three, are we doing it as good stewards of the state's money? So I can't answer your question specifically about Nemesis 3. Fortunately, I haven't had to understand all of that technology yet. But I will make sure that Rob Klein gets back with you. I know he's here during this, and he can answer that question for you.
Okay.
I appreciate y'all letting me take the opportunity to provide you with some of my messaging. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for coming up and welcome. And you're welcome to come back anytime. City Manager Lon Squires, by the way, he's no longer Fire Chief. City Manager Lon Squires. And I were just whispering back and forth that anybody that admits that they were a part of Track It has enough guts to stand up at that microphone anytime you want. So thank you for being so open and straightforward and willing to partner with us. We really appreciate you being that way.
Thank you. Tiffany, did you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
something else?
Rob will be attending the pop-off meeting.
Okay, Rob Klein will be at the pop-off meeting, the trauma
Okay.
systems registry pop-off meeting. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet. Thank you. And just for the benefit of the people in the room, they're working hard to try to do this correctly. I would encourage those who are wondering why the staffing isn't where they could have immediate contact, and that is to look at some of the registries in DSHS, and you'll be amazed. Registries that get a tenth, maybe a tenth of the annual entries that the trauma registry gets every year, have 10 times the staff working for them. So when you have opportunities to promote this registry with folks who make budget decisions and allocate money at the state level, remember that when you're waiting 2 to 5 days for the phone call to come back. There are things we as stakeholders can do to improve that process, and that is to get them more help as this continues to become more accepted by all of us, and we realize, as those of us like me who are a little hard-headed saying it's just going to fail again, start to understand that it's not going to. We need to really be vocal about that, about getting these folks some more help, because that will shorten the turnaround time on the phone calls. So they can't tell you that. I'll share that with you because I think it's an injustice, and that I think we as stakeholders can help them overcome. Anything else on the trauma work group, trauma systems committee registry work group? It's a long. Anything else, Brian?
No, I'm good.
All right. All righty. We're going to jump through a couple of things real quick. I saw Victor here. There he is. Real quick, Victor, on an EMTF update for the EMS folks.
All right, thank you for allowing me. Can you push go? One of the opportunities that the EMTF has had is Eric and some others were invited to come and present EMTF. There were invited guests to come before the Homeland Security Committee at the Capitol. So they took that opportunity, went up, explained about EMTF, what it is, and the fact that we are looking both local, regional, state, wherever we can find funding for sustainment. We understand the HPP cuts that have happened over the last year and may well continue in the future, and so sustainment. So that's the message that we're putting out, is helping the legislators and everybody that you know that's related and has the opportunity to explain what EMTF is as the system. So we've had that opportunity. Eric and a crew went and talked to the committee, and the committee asked, can you bring an ambulance and let us see it? So that was a great door opening. So we've actually done that twice. Got a call down to the valley where there were some legislators meeting, and they said, can you bring the ambulance? We want to see it. So we carried the ambulance down, showed it to the legislators, let them understand the ambulance. And the same thing at the Capitol. We had about 35 of the legislators and some of their administrative staff, different folks that came through and toured the bus, asked questions about the bus. But we've tried to make sure the message is much broader than just the bus. The bus is something tangible that you can touch and you can see, and we'll take you around the block in it, but the whole system itself is what's important. AMBUS, the MMU, the ambulance strike teams, the AMBUS teams, all of those things are so important. The MIST, the ASM, all of those guys are part of the bigger process. So we've gotten that message out, and we hope that them seeing the AMBUS and some of that stuff initially helps them to keep that in their mind, think about it, and to help us determine ways that we can find sustainment funding for the EMTF program itself. So that's been a big push around the state, and we're encouraging all of the 8 regions to identify the legislators in their areas so that when they hear EMTF, they understand what it is. And we've done that through some of our handouts that we've done for them. We've actually gone back and tied the things that have happened in their region through EMTF back into a map that they can see it, so that when they look at EMTF1 and they're from that area, they can say, you know, the dust storm that happened on the interstate up here, we recall that. The Thanksgiving Day crash between Beaumont and Houston, they recall that. The things that EMTF is doing, the Bastrop, the ice storms from out in West Texas where El Paso responded with snow plows in front of them. Those things, we're tying them back to legislators so that they understand, because they remember the event and how we fit in. So a lot of people didn't know EMTF 11's been supporting the crisis down on the border. Their tents have been set up for over 2 months. The tents were set up. They've had people in and out of them every single day since then. They've pretty much been running at a full capacity. They're supporting that as a local response, not as a state mission. It's EMTF, the local resources, supporting the Catholic charities that are down there. And so they've been up this entire time. Air conditioners running, lights are turned on, people sleeping in the tents. And they are doing a transition next Monday with some Salvation Army tentage that's coming in that'll relieve that. So we're excited. A lot of the legislators have seen that as well and have begun to understand a little bit more about what EMTF is and how we've been able to support that. But we've been supporting it, quietly. We weren't flying the flag telling everybody what we're doing. We're just trying to be helpful. So that's been working well. This is what we've been doing. Didn't update my slide this morning because all that turned. It's still coming that direction. We're watching the current storms, and I say that to say that's what we do every day. The EMTF is trying to think every day, what do we need to be prepared for? Where is it going? That's more of the model where the storms are going. There's a 50% chance within the next 48 hours that will come into a tropical depression, and 70% chance in the next 5 days. So everybody's awake, alert. We're watching it, seeing where it's going, because we don't know where it'll end up. One of the great successes that we've done, we talked about it in this committee last time we met, was that we had the EMTF Air MOA approved and it was ready to be signed, and now we've gotten it signed. I think we've got 8 or 9 agencies, air agencies, that have already signed it now. The others I've been talked to by folks this morning that says our boss has got it, it's on the desk, they're fixing to sign it, so we're good there. So we're real excited to say the air agencies partnering up with the EMTF is successful now in getting that MOA signed, so that we have the ability to deploy the rotorcraft and fixed wings across the state if we need them. And then yesterday, we did our MSAT radio checks. And it was important yesterday. I talked about this in the GETAC Disaster Committee, because this was the meeting a year ago where we said, hey, we just did our first test. We think we're going to do this every month. And so we've done it every month since. And the stars that are up there now are the MSATs that are in place across the state now that are operational that people can talk on. I did the MSAT radio check statewide yesterday from the hotel parking lot. I went out and got in the vehicle, cranked it up, turned it on, and I talked to people in El Paso and talked to people in Houston and in the Valley all yesterday because they're operational. And people know how to use them, they know how to talk on them, and it works. So we've taken something that was a capability and now we've made it very functional. So we're excited. All those stars are real resources that exist that people can go out and turn them on right now and start talking. And in addition to that, those 3 stars are really important to me. They're monitored 24/7. We have 3 dispatch centers that are monitoring the MSATs on interagency 24/7. The one in Lubbock, San Antonio, that's UMC for EMTF1 in the Lubbock Com Center, San Antonio Medcom, and Cypress Creek EMS EMTF6 out of Houston, all monitor interagency on the MSAT. That's great for those guys that are traveling long distance that have it in the vehicle and it's there, and if they need something, they know they can connect, and those 3 agencies are listening all the time. In addition to that, we have a number of mocks now that have them ready to be turned on and monitored when they're operational. And then one of the great accomplishments recently, Dudley reached out to our AMBUS vendor and said, can you give us a list of the AMBUS owners across the state? And he sent that. This is a first pass draft map of where's our help coming from. So it's great to know to think outside. Texas needs to call help. Who do we call? Where are we going? So this is a great representation of the AMBUSs from the vendor that we use, just to say here's where the other buses are across the United States. In addition to this, we were able to talk to them. We've set up a nationwide list server where TDMS from Texas is hosting the list server that's connecting the AMBUS owners from across the United States together so that we're all talking. So we're all on the same list serve. They've all got the address. They can send a question. They can send a best practice or ideas to the list serve. And Texas is helping connect the United States together. So we're excited about that. And then last month in our EMTF executive, we've started down the path of trying to build our sustainment of personnel. How do we train the guys that are going to relieve us? The leadership that we have through EMTF and the task force and the group supervisors, they all just kind of figured it out when we started. And we were put in place and approved last month the ability to have task books so that they come in and we begin structured training and we start training our replacements. And lastly, at the request of Chief Kidd a couple of months ago, he said, I'd like to know when the AMBUSs and other things are being activated across the state. Can we notify the SOC or the State Operations Center? So we did that, and it worked so well that several other agencies said, well, we'd like to know too. We need to know what's moving. And some of the EMTF leadership said, well, we need to know as well. So we've made a change of plans. Instead of sending an email directly to the SOC, we've created an email address on behalf of EMTF, not limited to AMBUS. It could be ambulance strike teams, it could be mobile medical units, but it's a status. They send an email to that address, the TX EMTF status, and it will in turn bounce to the SOC, the SMOC, and the leaders that want to get these constant updates of what's in service, what's out of service, and what's deployed. So that's our most recent, and it's already been active. We've already had 4 or 5 things that have passed through it that said this AMBUS is responding here for a rehab, this one's going on an MCI, and it's working because people want to know what's going on, and it helps the folks next door to say, we need to, perk our ears up because this bus is going somewhere. We're next up. Questions for me?
Anybody in the audience, update from EMTF? Any questions from anybody? All right. Thank you, Victor. I appreciate you running over for that. If anybody out there is somewhat involved or not involved, you can get with your local EMTF coordinator. And then if anybody else is purchasing satellite radios, you have those in your fleet or your operation or your city or your county, and you'd like to integrate with the rest of the state, you can see Victor. He'll share with you how to do that. You can even be a part of the monthly MSAT checks because they check just about everybody that has one just to make sure that they're all working and can communicate. It is a great backup communication system, and the cost is not too horrible. So. Thank you, Victor.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Rob has come over from Cross to be able to speak real quickly on the version 3.0 give us an
okay, for
update, if
NEMSIS?
that's okay with you, sir?
Sure. Not going to share your mic? You could have shared your mic. Anyone had to
That's
stand
more
up?
impressive statement.
Oh, I got you, okay.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Rob Klein. I am the project manager for the Trauma Registry at DSHS. I understand there are some questions around the NEMSIS version 3.3 new data dictionary that's going to go into where it is at and where we are before we go into production. At this point in time, we have all the elements modeled, all the NEMSIS elements modeled in our system. We have built an XML upload, so we are able to take in these NEMSIS elements from the various EMS agencies. We are still finalizing, and we got a couple questions left to work out, but we are finalizing our Texas custom questions. So those should be within the system within the next couple weeks. So we should have that completed, and then we're targeting for this fall to be able to start from their EMS agencies to bring in the new NEMSIS version 3.3 data dictionary plus the custom codes. The one key thing that has kind of kept us, we're a little delayed in this. We were hoping to have this here earlier. The one issue that we do have is we built into this process a brand new feedback report. So when EMS agencies submit through their vendors, in the old we used to get this big log report that was very cumbersome, let's just put it that way, very unreadable, very hard to read. And what we've done is we've taken all those elements, we've worked with our vendor, and we now have that built into a really nice a PDF. So a PDF actually gets developed, it gets built within the system, and you can actually go and look at this PDF, and it gives you all of the errors, the warnings that you have in your file for all the different elements, and tells you how many incomplete questions are also there. So we've built this, we've taken a lot of time. We're building some different summary reports around this for the racks and for other areas. But the reporting, the submission report has taken us a little longer, it's taken about an extra month or so to build and develop. And we're still going through the testing stages. But I believe by the end of September, middle of October, we should be able to roll this out to all the EMS agencies. So that's where we're at right now. Our other key piece, doesn't affect EMS, but kind of plays into our project plan though, is the hospitals and the National Trauma Data Bank are still waiting for the same thing. We're kind of delayed there because we pushed them back about a month due to this feedback report. So all the pieces are there. We can start collecting. We just couldn't tell you what errors are there. So now we've made this really nice report service so that not only will you can go in and get the report, but we are working on a basis, and we hope to roll that out later too, that the report will be emailed out to the person who actually submitted the data. So that's one other little piece we're going to have there. So this is a PDF. It'll be on the systems. So our support staff will be able to look at the same report that you get through your email. So if there's any questions, we'll be able to go back and forth and be able to tell you exactly what's in there.
And I heard you say that report, you're working on that report being emailed to the person that submitted the data as well as the agency.
Right. The account the account representative of that entity who sent in the data will get that report back to them.
Awesome.
So that is a big piece. We could have had this out earlier, but we would have caused more support problems. So we decided to hold off and do it right.
That's a big fix. A lot of us use maybe the same billing company or our local rack. In our rack, they handle our PCRs. So if I get the report and the rack doesn't get it, and I don't send it to them, they don't know that maybe it's a setting they changed in the PCR software that's causing everybody's to error and come back. And so with it going to the submitter, that's huge.
Yes, we're going to send it to the submitter. So
Thank you very much.
We're looking forward to this, and we should be this. Best is probably end of September. Worst case is probably end of October. So we're very close right now. We've got all the little pieces built. We're just waiting for the final of this feedback report right now.
Do you know what vendors that you've?
We haven't talked to any vendors directly for the NEMSIS stuff. We're working to work that through in September here. Okay. We've been directly working right now with the National Trauma Data Bank with the hospital stuff because we promised that to them first. and you guys were supposed to, and NEMSIS was supposed to come in the fall. We're still hitting our fall time frame, but we'll be starting to talk to Zoll and those type of vendors as we go through this process.
So worst case scenario, first part of next year, we should be up and running. We should be
Yeah,
able to
well,
accept that.
yes, we'll start collecting, we'll ask all the EMS units who can get their software updated, start collecting the 2015 data. That's our goal. If we can collect some of it in 14 to test through the system and any issues we have, terrific. But 15 is where our push is, because then we'll have the full data set then. So we're really quite excited about that. Any other questions?
I need to take it back, guys.
Oh, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do what she says. All right. I'm going to skip around a little bit. We're going to skip down to number 13. Thank you, ma'am. We're going to skip down to number 13. EMS patient care reports provided to receiving emergency facilities as required by Chapter 157.11, paragraph M9. Yes, Mr. Schmieder.
And sir, I can answer a number 10 in about 30 seconds if you would like.
Okay, we'll go back to that, but let's do 13 quick.
So 13 is, we put this on the agenda because we are hearing repeatedly from hospitals that patients are being delivered and no information is being left and they're gone. And we've asked this committee, the medical committee, and I think somebody else, to look at it. And we need to talk about how do we ensure that this information some information is being left behind. The law requires it in the rules, and it's not it's not a written, I mean, it can be a written report, but it's talking about the patient name, the condition, the care given, the status during transport, the vitals, the initial time, the dispatch time, the arrival time, and the staff ID. It's not a full report, and then it goes on to say that in the law it's required you can give an abbreviated written report and then do the full report within 1 business day. It's not happening. And it's a patient safety issue, and we want to bring it to the attention. And maybe you want to take it back to your a committee meeting or something like that and really rip this apart a little bit, but it is an issue, and we need to fix this as a system.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think it's multifaceted, and so I think us spending a little time maybe digesting it some and having some discussions and seeking maybe some input from folks about that, because I think it's a two-pronged problem. I think in the day of electronics, they're getting it, but nobody knows where it is because of the method in which it's being delivered, or the people sending it think it's being sent and it's never being received. So, there's a whole bunch of issues around both sides of that that I think, we could probably work on to help make better.
And I've been involved with this nationally on this because it is a national problem, not just a Texas problem. But if you think about providing a PCR 24 hours or 1 business day after the patient arrived, the patient is either home, upstairs, or in the morgue, one of the 3 places. And it's really then just being used for research. What we really need to do is develop a process to ensure that the doctors and the nurses have what happened, quick, abbreviated, right there and then, so that when that doctor walks in or that nurse walks in, they can know what's been happening with this patient and start treating the patient better. As I said earlier, it's an issue, a safety issue. And I think for all of us with any more than one color hair, we can remember the days when the hospitals were not as busy and you could hang around there, and we're all busy now. We're leaving, the hospitals are doing what they need to do, the nurses and the doctors, and the patient's the one suffering here.
Well, and I have a little pet peeve as well. We can talk more about it.
Sure.
I think it needs to be a two-way street.
Fully agree.
We bend over backward. Well, some of us try to bend over backwards to make sure they're getting it, and then we need information from them for follow-up, and we're reading the obituaries to get cardiac arrest survival rates. I mean, that's crazy.
Fully agree. And I would just ask, and we'll be doing some other committees, that this is an issue that we need to start thinking about fixing.
Okay. And Dudley, I'll tell you from our rack, we tracked that very specific item in a data set, asking, and maybe a work group with what you're talking about, because we, in our attempt regionally to track that, we can achieve about 85–86%, which was a rise when we started about 3 years ago, and we learned that direct admits to certain floors, it gets lost in getting to the record at the big hospitals, and they don't know what to do with it in the age of EPCR. Where do you need to send it to the medical record file or anything like that? So we've spent a couple years at RAC 8 attempting to do that, but my recommendation would be to, I don't know if a work group's the right thing, but bring all those stakeholders, components together in the same room. If we beat it here together, if we beat it just as this committee on an individual basis, we may not get very far without knowing the other side of it.
I do have one question. Yeah. So if when you arrive at the hospital with your patient and then you're interviewed by the triage nurse, they are asking you questions and the patient questions, they're inputting that information into the hospital or the patient care record at the hospital. Why is that not
the abbreviated report?
The abbreviated report that we're talking about.
So it's not always happening that way, and that's why I'm asking that we need to look at it as a group. And I agree with Justin 100% that we need to bring in all players to see, is there a process to ensure that that's happening. It's just not happening, and I don't think there's anyone to blame. The healthcare system is just so busy right now. But I also agree with the chair that we can't solve everybody's problems. We just got to make sure that we've handled our part of it. So, yeah, it's multiple. I mean, you know, you can encode the hospital, give them a report before you get there, give a report when you get there to the first register, then you give it to a nurse, and somehow it's being lost.
You just really showed your age when you said encode the hospital.
Yeah, I know.
There's probably only about 10 people here that know what that means.
Just in reference to the first part of this meeting, could you repeat that part about me being right?
Yeah. He was right.
All right.
Just for the record.
While we get set up on, we're going to look at our recommendations for the strategic plan for everybody that's still here. But you said you could handle the Eve thing in 30 seconds, because we're going to actually discuss more about that, but probably not today.
So you know, we heard at the last meeting there was some discussion about that, and unknowns to me, when we turned down an EAF, an emergency funding opportunity, the last sentence says, if at the end of the contract year there's still money available, we'll reconsider your position. And because you don't want to just dump all the money out early in the year and then have a major need for somebody. Not that everyone doesn't have a need. So we did that this year. So there were 3 requests that came into us that we said earlier in the year we were unable to fund you at this time, but we'll reconsider. We went back. We didn't have as many emergency requests. We reopened it, and we did fund those 3 requests. So everyone who put in an EAF this year was funded. Good. So, and that will prevent the money. The law does say that if at the end of the day there's money there, it goes into the uncompensated fund.
Well, that's the other piece that I think we wanted to maybe get a little clarification on. And then if that were to somehow be changed, what should that money do at the end of the year if it's not going to go to uncompensated trauma care? So yep. I think that's the part we wanted to discuss as a group. In getting ready for this, I did pull up the law, and the law reads a little differently, and I read that. I can't find the section we read last time we were all here.
Sure.
Because where it says that it rolls over into uncompensated trauma care, but the law I found says money that is not spent in a fiscal year shall be transferred to the reserve for the following fiscal year, and it doesn't address the biennium. It just says it's going to go to the next fiscal year. Right. So it looks like there may actually be some conflict in that language that can go to uncompensated trauma care, but it's supposed to continue to roll over. And there may be issues with it rolling over through the biennium. I don't know.
Right.
But maybe a little clarification on that. And then when we get together in November, we're going to hash out what are some other options if it doesn't go to uncompensated trauma care. How should it be handled?
Sure. So my whole point today was just to make sure that this committee knew that we were re-looking at that to make sure as much as the request comes in. So in this year, we funded everybody who did put in a...
That's awesome.
And just one caution with that, Joe. There have been people in the past that just because the money's sitting there and the paper's easy to fill out, they'll fill it out. They don't necessarily... all of those people do not necessarily need the money. So I would ask you to look very carefully when you do your second look.
I can tell you, at least in the year that I've been here, I am sure there are people that hate Joe Schmieder, because we are really drilling down into the questions.
Good.
On and looking for the documentation and the ones.
There are folks that desperately need that money.
There is no
Right.
doubt, but I don't want to also perceive that we're just giving away money, that you need to earn that money and have the need. And we're asking the hard questions. I can assure you of that.
I don't think anybody hates you. I'm just saying.
There might be a couple, because
So,
this has been a little painful.
That's
All
a
right.
nice flower arrangement you have.
So, real quick, we're gonna review the EMS committee met Tuesday to review the GTAC strategic plan charge that we were given, and we're gonna kind of walk through some of that. I sat through educations this morning, and we didn't quite do the same way they did. We didn't go too much through the current plan. We did some as it related to the items, but Dr. Eastridge, who sits on the GTAC council, was the one put in charge of getting the committees to do this, and he handed out a tool that basically said when GTAC met last to discuss the strategic plan, they came up with some areas that they thought needed to be included, and then they challenged the committees to review those, if they need to be included or not, and try to expand upon them a little bit, and then put anything else in there that needed to be. So we went with that document. We did reference back to the current plan and pulled things out and pulled things forward as we went along, but I'm just going to run through this. I know this is kind of boring, but we started up at the top of the plan, and we actually made suggestions to both the vision and the mission statement. The vision, we said, we reworded to say a comprehensive, integrated, and efficient EMS trauma and acute healthcare system for all of Texas. And then the mission to promote, develop, and maintain a comprehensive, integrated, and efficient EMS trauma and acute healthcare system that will meet the needs of all patients, raise the standards of outcome-based healthcare, assure appropriate resources and delivery, reduce injury incidences and severity by implementing innovative techniques and systems for the delivery of emergency care for all of Texas. Talking about this through the meeting and after reading through it and thinking about it, we did leave disaster preparedness off, and we think, as Eric so eloquently put in his committee meeting yesterday, that a good healthcare system will give you a good disaster preparedness system and vice versa. So we feel it needs to be included in here, so we'll take that to GTAC as well. And then some of their topics, we didn't put anything down on the integrated delivery service as it kind of goes throughout this. Clinical care was one of the ones that they thought needed to be in there. We talked about essential service, since EMS is not legally mandated, and then give consideration to mobile integrated health care in the clinical care picture, and consider standardized practice rather than standardized care. Rehabilitation, we didn't make any comments on. Special populations, we thought needed to be referenced when discussing various areas of the strategic plan, but not be its own bullet in the strategic plan, because it's too hard to wrap your hands around. Every time you think you know all the special populations, all of a sudden there's a new special population. And so they thought all the things that relate to special populations we felt needed to be mentioned in those areas. Communication systems, pulling out the old plan pre-arrival instructions available throughout Texas, establish a minimal standard in dispatch practice for all of Texas. Licensed EMS providers should sign and abide by the Texas Interoperability Plan. And the evolution of technology in terms of communication and social media should be explored and exploited to the system's advantage at the local, regional, and state level. In other words, as we continue to grow and adapt with social media and apps and everything else that's out there, that we should work to exploit those to our advantage, not just with one agency or one hospital in one agency, but try to do that regionally and statewide as well. Community outreach, we felt was locally driven, and people needed to be given the tools to do that locally. And of course, mobile integrated healthcare in our discussions came in again there. Equipment resources was a big one that was brought up by GTAC, and we kind of tacked on to what the EMS for Children did, and we said we need this needs to include personnel resources as well, and that we need to do a statewide EMS needs assessment. The pediatric folks did it looking at pediatric stuff, but we felt one of the things in the strategic plan is we should find some dollars to do a statewide needs assessment on equipment and people, and then develop funding plans to help to increase local project grants, and use that needs assessment to kind of focus in on those local project grants where they can help us achieve the things that the strategic plan says we need to achieve. Geographical challenges, again, we think this needs to be in every category as opposed to a category by itself, because we certainly have geographical challenges from one end of our state to the other. We felt it would be a part of every category and not its own. Legislation and regulation, again, not enough DSHS personnel to enforce legislation and regulations that we currently have. We need permanent EMS trauma and acute healthcare system development and maintenance funding, i.e. RACs and the systems. Need to make EMS an essential system, and we kind of use that word there because in parentheses we put like the trauma system and the stroke system. Trauma system is mandated by legislation, so is a stroke system. The cardiac system very likely will be shortly. And so instead of maybe trying to go after essential service, maybe we work on legislation that says EMS is an essential system in Texas, and there's legislation that mandates it has to be developed to a certain level. Continue to raise the bar for entry and renewal in the Texas EMS system to combat fraud. Need common interpretation of legislation and regulation, too many differential interpretations among the regions. So there needs to be some type of handbook that says what the rules mean. And then continue to develop the administrator of record training and continuing education. Medical oversight must continue to defend delegated practice across the state and continue to develop medical director training and continuing education. Performance improvement, patient safety. One bullet point we added there is that our disciplinary system in Texas needs to move into more of a peer-reviewed disciplinary process, and that there needs to be a peer review component to that. Preparedness, all EMS services should be required to be involved in disaster preparedness and response at the local or regional level. And that's all EMS transport providers in the state should be required to not just have a plan, but to be involved in their local and regional plans. Prevention, we didn't have any comments there because we're concerned about job security. Professional education, study the effects of increased educational requirements on the availability of pre-hospital care providers in the rural and frontier areas of Texas. Continue to improve all aspects of pre-hospital care providers' education and preparation. Notice that doesn't say to increase the amount of education, it says to improve all aspects of the pre-hospital care providers' education and preparation. A lot of EMS operators in the room focused on that word preparation because there's a lot of concern in our industry across the nation that folks are not coming out of school prepared to get on an ambulance and do the work like they were several years ago. That seems to have changed. They're much more intelligent, they have much broader knowledge, but they're not prepared to be a paramedic or an EMT when they come out of school, and it's putting a burden on the operators. Evaluate the possibility of simplifying the current certification levels. That was the paramedic thing I mentioned in the education committee this morning, and facilitate the availability of hospital clinical internships. That continues to be a problem around the state of finding good places to do viable patient care rotations inside of hospital facilities. Research, explore the potential for a process to approve variances to current regulations that are based on scientifically sound research principles. Basically, if you are, that was in the previous strategic plan and we carried it forward. And basically it's a plan so that if you're going to participate in some type of blind study and you've got something on your truck and you get inspected and DSHS wants to know what is this and it's not in your protocols to use, it's not on your checklist, why are you carrying this, that there needs to be a variance process. Support and grow the annual research forum at the Texas EMS Conference. Support evidence-based protocols and guidelines. Information systems, we added quite a bit there. Unified EMS Trauma and Healthcare Registry. EMS should only be transmitting data set once, and each group, DSHS, RAC, trauma, stroke, cardiac, can then pull the data they need. Better utilization of information collected. Data collection needs to be directly related to improvement in patient care, education, and system development and practices. Moving EMS, this is from our stakeholder work, moving EMS in Texas to 100% electronic patient care reporting across the state. And utilize real-time two-way patient data exchange between EMS hospitals and other healthcare providers as they're developed. We need to make sure EMS is included in that picture. Sustainable system funding, explore new sources of short-term funding as well as adequate long-term sustainable funding for all components of local, regional, and state emergency trauma and acute healthcare services, including DSHS as the oversight agency. Reimbursement, need to recommend to the state establish Medicaid reimbursement rate schedules that are congruent with the national Medicare reimbursement rate schedules. and not 25% less. Expand and improve legislation to fund uncompensated EMS trauma and acute health care for both government and nonprofit services. Identify available reimbursement payment sources and disseminate information to EMS agencies. System access, utilization of existing technology to increase access to the system. Second generation 911, improving GIS, especially in the rural areas, and to provide improved information to the caller. And that ties in back into pre-arrival instructions, maybe doing some type of smartphone app for that. And then workforce assessment of availability of paramedics and EMTs in the state compared to the needs assessment, evaluation of initial certification, reciprocity certification, and the retention of personnel in Texas. And periodic workforce assessments of EMS should be conducted to ensure adequate numbers and distribution of personnel. I think we're going to say we're done. Is that correct? Is there any comments from the committee, or that either wasn't there, didn't attend, or anybody in the audience that thinks maybe we missed something or has a question about why something's in there the way it is?
And quick question, Dudley. I think there was some confusion yesterday, and maybe in the document we're giving out, but I noticed there's some aeromedical people in here that asked the question about the participation in this. What is the timeline to get this to General Counsel? Because we think it's by November of this year, and yesterday there was an announcement that it's by November of next year.
So I think we need to ask the council that. My understanding was that it was that in November they're going to start working on the recommendations. They want to have the complete plan updated by next November. I saw that November 2015 in the document, and I assumed it was a typo just because I was in the meeting. And knowing Dr. Eastridge, he's a ready, fire, aim kind of guy, and so I don't think he would put in 15 months of work to just get the recommendations to GETAC. So knowing that, that's why we worked to get there. And we know meeting as late as we did, we may have to go longer, but I think we should have it ready for them in the next few weeks at the latest. That was my understanding. That's the goal I've been pushing us towards.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Anybody else? All right. Appreciate everybody's hard work on that. There were several folks in the audience that sat through several of those. We met on Tuesday, and then we recessed and re-met again yesterday a couple of times, and several of you stopped in and offered input, and so I appreciate that. This is the first step. This is not the final step. All of this will go to GETAC, and then we'll have stakeholder processes to sit down and start hashing through this to put the real words in there. So we just tried to, based upon our recommendations for rule revisions a few years ago, and based upon the stakeholder meetings we held last fall, we tried to include as much of that in this as we could.
Dudley, do you need a motion for that?
Who what?
Do you need a motion to take that to GETAC? Council?
I don't think it would hurt. If y'all want to do that, I'll certainly accept one.
I so move.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Anybody opposed? All right. We'll get it cleaned up. We'll get it distributed. We'll put it on the website, and then we'll send it to. We'll take it to the GETAC Council. All right. Thank y'all. Brett, do you need to talk to us? I just noticed you moved closer to the mic.
Thanks, David. Sorry to keep y'all for a few minutes, but the EMS compliance manager just wanted to give you a little update and an announcement on some things that's going on internally. We've been working on a project for about the last 2 years to go to tablet-based inspections. And basically that means it's been a journey for us. Just like you implement EPCRs into your system, we're now going to implement the paper inspection document. So just a couple of things. We hope to turn this switch on in September. We're pretty close. We've been working with staff. We've been working with our IT. So what you see from an inspection is going to look very, very different in the future, probably starting this September. The next thing, we will not be leaving paper with you at the end of an inspection. Some providers might have seen a staff come out and visit with you a little bit, maybe do a run through with this, trying to follow through, but we've been working hard on that. We'll hope to be paperless, and then we even hope to start communicating these inspections to you by email. And just kind of take questions real quick if you have any.
Any questions for Brett on the new e-inspections?
Yeah, and we hope to design a little flyer, maybe even do a little webinar just for the directors to listen in and tell you a little bit more. But we hope to turn this switch on in September.
That's cool, man. Congratulations.
Welcome to the 21st century.
I was about to open it for public comment, so to prevent you from having to walk back up, one of the things that has come up in a few conversations around, we were going to bring up, I was going to bring up at rack chairs, and I say we, I was, but I wanted to bring it up here for public comment as well, is that I know in our rack, we ask at our main rack meeting, especially at our pre-hospital committee meeting, that one of our inspection folks, one of the regulatory folks comes out and attends that rack meeting. We like it when the regional manager can come, but we realize there's 3 or 4 of y'all in the state, 4, and there's 22 racks. But I think there's been some issues with racks requesting that the regional manager come, and they're not coming. Sometimes there's things that the local guys aren't necessarily prepared or are not comfortable answering that the managers could come. And so I didn't know if there was anything that you might know about that would prevent those guys from coming, or is there? I mean, I know we can't invite them to every rack meeting every month or every other month across the state, but once or twice a year potentially is. I mean, I don't know.
It's time and distance like everything, Dudley. But if the chair would make sure the manager gets asked.
Okay.
I don't know if the chair from the rack has actually reached out and said, "Hey, can you be at this meeting for X?"
Okay.
So make sure we know.
I'll take that to the rack chairs tonight and make sure. It's I've heard it from a couple of, I think, chairs and just from other people talking, because I was mentioning something that Arlen said to us one time, and they're like, he comes to your meeting? And I'm like, yeah, he comes. Whenever he can. He's not there at every one, but he comes when he can. And so we started talking about it, and they're like, man, we tried to get ours to come, and they never come, and so I think it may be a communication thing, but having you say, make sure that we let the manager know, we'll certainly make sure that the chairs know to do that.
We want to be there. I mean, we want to be there or try to attend some.
Yeah.
I'm guilty right there. I don't make a lot of mine, but I try to send when we can staff out there.
Understand. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Anybody in the audience have anything? Did I miss anything?
Dudley, I have something I'd like to bring up.
Yes.
And we've been talking about it all week up here a little bit because it's real prevalent in my area. But it has to do with Air Medical going out and soliciting companies and individuals to call them directly and not call 911. Is that something we want to put on our agenda for November and get that to the forefront and see if the folks in my area are looking at it wrong, or if there's something that needs to change about that or happen or can change? Or
Have you talked to Shirley about that, the chair of Air Medical?
Not yet.
Okay, let's do that, and if she's comfortable with it, then I'll take it to GETAC tomorrow and ask. And maybe one of those that's on both agendas. Maybe we can butt the meetings up against each other, maybe spend a little time discussing that together. Maybe we can look at doing that in November. But I'm certainly game for it. I just don't want to blindside them and us talk about it and then them come in after their meeting an hour later and go, you talked about what? Wait, we could have, so.
Absolutely.
Talk to Shirley this afternoon when you see her around and get back with me, but I'll be happy to ask GTAC about that tomorrow. Anything else? Yes.
Oh, one more thing. I'd like to congratulate Joe. That's a beautiful flyer arrangement.
Thank you.
I think he brought it from his office, actually.
I think it was delivered. I think it was a gift.
Joe, I did have one thing for you, maybe two. You and I had communicated about a coordinator course in November, and it's not going to be, and I assume that's because y'all are doing the first administrator of record course in November.
That is true.
And there's been a question about the administrator of record course. I know that because the moratorium's ending, that's going to be really focused at new people coming in. But is there the possibility of folks auditing that course or that type of thing? Or if we're going to come in the door, we need to register and pay the fee? What's your thoughts on that?
So we're planning, and the reason we're doing on Saturday, Sunday, we can literally take hundreds of people for this. Popping in and out auditing, I'm not sure that's a big problem. We'll have to talk to Kelly and the committee there. I don't think it's going to be a big problem just to pop in and pop out. You're not going to get credit for it. There have been several RACs have asked me, can we have a presentation in their region? So we want to get through the first one first, see how it goes and what works, what doesn't work. It's going to be harder to duplicate it outside because we're bringing in the FBI. We're bringing in, it's not going to just be us speaking to this group. But I think there'll be I think we can still do it locally. So we're going to look at that. But you also should know that we are going to look, as we did with the medical director's course, of putting in the AOR course online also. And so that you'll be able to take it online. Because I think this is going to be one of those things, you know, it's going to be a big rush in the beginning, and then it's going to be, there's not going to be such a demand over the years to keep having new people come in, because it's for the initial program. I can assure you that it is our intent to have at least 8 hours of continuing education at every annual conference for AORs. So you can meet your content requirement every year by attending the conference. So that's where we're at right now. Assume the answer is yes, if somebody wants to pop in, listen for a little bit, and then jump back out. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If it is a problem, I'll let you all know ahead of time. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. But you're not going to be able to hang in there because that's just not fair. People are paying to be there. You're definitely not getting credit.
Okay, sure, Brian.
The content for that course, did y'all follow what our suggestion was, or did y'all come up with some other?
The suggestions have been brought in, and I can tell you what the. I have it here somewhere. I do have a piece of paper here. If you want to see me afterwards, I can tell you exactly what the outline of the course is. Okay. But it's going to be on QA, medical accountability, drug diversion. There's a whole section on Texas EMS law, similar to what we did for Chapter 8 of the Medical Director's course. There's going to be a panel discussion at the end to answer any questions. There's going to be some evaluation going on through the course, so it's not going to be just sit there and sleep through kind of a program.
All right. Any other open public comment or anything? All right, we had one agenda item we didn't touch on that if I can buzz through real quick if people want to hear it. If not, we can kind of go on our way. I just put on there to discuss the sunset review recommendations for DSHS. And I just wanted to buzz through those real quick. There were most everything for the committee. Most everything that was there came out of the report that DSHS did to the legislature, of which we were a big part of. And I'll buzz through them real quick. The first one was require an EMS provider to have a physical location for its business establishment to obtain a license. And basically, it can't be a mobile mini storage unit in the middle of a vacant lot. It has to actually be like a place you conduct business from. Recommendation 4.2, require an EMS provider to provide proof of ownership or a long-term lease agreement for all equipment necessary for safe operation of an EMS company. We already have to prove we own or lease our ambulances. This, I think, would include stretchers, cardiac monitors, AEDs, etc. Recommendation 4.3, authorize DSHS to require a jurisprudence exam for all EMS certified providers. I think Brett has talked to us about that on a number of occasions. That's done across the state in a number of different industries, and looks like it'll probably be coming our way. 4.4, clearly authorize DSHS to take disciplinary action against EMS providers or personnel based on findings by a governmental entity with delegated authority to conduct inspections. So basically, if a city has an ordinance that allows them to do inspections and DSHS has agreed to that ordinance, and they go out there and they find, let's say there's no AED on the ambulance, that DSHS can start the disciplinary process based upon that local jurisdiction's finding of no AED, and not have to go out and then catch it again without an AED, which has been kind of a chase their tail type of thing that they've been involved in. 4.5, require DSHS to develop a formal process to refer non-jurisdictional complaints relating to EMS to appropriate organizations. And that is when they stumble across stuff doing inspections or whatever that the DSHS doesn't have authority over, is actually requiring DSHS to then notify the other agencies that do have authority over that. Some of that's clear, but not all of it is clear. So that was a recommendation from the Sunset Committee. And then the last one was require DSHS to collect, maintain, and make publicly available detailed statistical information on complaints regarding EMS licenses. So the Sunset Review Commission made a few little minor modifications to some of these, changed a little bit of wording in them, but then voted to accept all of these recommendations. What that means then is that when we get to November and legislation starts getting ready to be filed, we're going to see some legislation being filed that relates to these recommendations. If you'd like to read these in more detail, read the background on it, this report is available to anybody. You go to Google, search on Texas Sunset Commission, and when you get there, click on the DSHS link, and it will take you to another page. You click on the report with the committee's recommendations, and it'll take you to a 191-page PDF document that it covers everything about DSHS. The big section you're looking for is Section 4 that relates to EMS, but it doesn't hurt to just glance through the rest of it when you have time. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. We hadn't really discussed that here, and so if you have any questions, you can see your friendly local neighborhood Joseph Schmieder, and he could probably help expound on some of them, because I know they had some input into that as well. So.
And Lee,
Yes.
a large majority of those recommendations will be in the new draft rules that are coming forward.
Okay.
They will not require legislation. There are
Cool.
a couple that do, but most of them do not. And the one that's off the top of my head is the physical location of the building as well as the equipment.
Good. Alrighty. If there's nothing else, I think we can call this meeting adjourned. Anything? Okay, let's
There
see.
is a buffet out there if anybody's
All right.
interested. I think it's $10.
There's a buffet. Just Joe's room number is 516. Jay Schmieder.
His charge card.